Hey everyone, this is Annabel Helm and I am excited to be part of Humans of Telecom.
Hey everyone, a very warm welcome to Humans of Telecom, the Unplugged podcast. This is your host Anurag Aggarwal, Chief Growth Officer at Globe Teleservices. For those tuning in for the first time, this podcast takes you behind the scenes of the fast-paced world of telecom and showcases the human side of some of the most well-known individuals within this space. And today, we feature a very popular individual who epitomizes the term industry collaboration. Having been in the telecom space for over a decade, she has worked and led teams in some of the most well-known telecom associations across the globe. While she hobnobs with CXOs, business leaders, and the who's who of the industry, her simple and affable nature makes it a complete pleasure to interact with her every time. So please join me in welcoming this wonderful human being, Annabel Helm, Managing Director at ITW Global Leaders Forum and BroadGroup. Annabel, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this journey. We'd love to hear more about you. Which part of the world do you belong to? And from where are you joining this podcast today?
Wow, that's an introduction. Thank you so much, Anurag. I am joining from the UK. I live just outside of London. And yeah.
Well, while you do come across as the traditional UK citizen, but is UK where your roots and origins also are from, or are there some parts of you which are from other parts of the world?
I think there's some parts of everyone that's from other parts of the world for sure. Yes. So my family heritage is Celtic, right? So Scottish predominantly. But on my mother's side, we've been kind of global nomads for a long period of time. So my mom was born and raised in Tanzania. And my grandmother was born and raised in Myanmar, well, Burma as it was known then, and her family lived all in Trivandrum before that. So we've got a little bit of a mixed family history, and if it always surprises a lot of my English friends as to why I tend to be a little bit more adventurous with my ingredients when I'm cooking, because that's what I grew up with, right? So, yeah.
Interesting, and I think for me personally, I take pride in the fact knowing that a part of Annabelle comes from South India as well. So, I'm very happy.
Well, it's an amazing place. So, I've spent quite a lot of time there, so it's always nice to rediscover roots, right, and understand a little bit more about where you come from and why we are the way we are, right?
Absolutely. And, shifting gears from where you have come from to where you are today, how has your journey been like? How did you end up in telecom? And was it by chance or by design? And how has the journey been so far?
Definitely by chance. I started in telecoms actually working at Capacity Media, I think in 2011, so a little while ago now. And spent a couple of years cutting my teeth in the wonderful world of wholesale telecoms before spending 8 years at the GSMA, which was an amazing insight into, as you say, collaboration and industry association, how members can work together to deliver shared goals and objectives is super exciting to me. And then when the GLF came knocking last year, I jumped at the opportunity to kind of come back to wholesale, back to that kind of infrastructure roots that I laid down over a decade ago. And it's been, it's been a bit of a squiggly career, right? Managing programs, delivering events, all of these types of things, but it's always with collaborations, partnerships, at the heart of kind of everything that I do. So telecoms is a wonderful world to be in. And I am very excited. Well, I'm very happy actually that I ended up here by accident and not by design, right? I don't want to leave anytime soon.
Awesome. I think a lot of us in this industry have ended up by accident, so I can totally relate to that. And in this squiggly career, as you mentioned, I'm sure there must have been some one or two very impactful moments. So, are there some things which you can share with our listeners today?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I suppose at the outset, I know that I may not come across like this, but I'm naturally quite a shy person. So most of my memorable moments really come from when I've gone out of my comfort zone and kind of really gone to battle with, my imposter syndrome and my natural shyness to kind of overcome those things, right? Because if you don't try, you don't know. Um, so it's really battling with myself. And I think for me, the thing that sticks out most, well, from a couple of instances, right, was coming back to, or at least taking on the leadership of the GLF, right? For the first time, it was, I suppose, me in the spotlight, whereas my career to date had been really focused around ensuring other people and other leaders were being presented correctly and accurately, and the messaging was geared to be able to generate the maximum impact for our members. And when I took the stage last year for my first, at the first ITW keynote, and the first keynote I'd ever moderated, in fact, the first panel I had ever moderated, in a non-virtual format, it was terrifying, right? I'm sat on the stage with true leaders with an amazing track record, and there's that moment where you sit there and you go, wait, hang on a sec, how did I get there, and how can I ensure that I steer the conversation in a way that allows everybody to show themselves in their best light. And that was, a lot of work. I always prepare heavily for any type of speaking engagement, because that's the only way that I can deal with I suppose, my shyness and the imposter syndrome, right? If you're following a set list of questions, you kind of know where you're going. And it's, yeah, so I probably kind of stepping out of the shadows myself was, the biggest thing that I've had to really combat, because I naturally just don't want, I don't really like it when when people are looking at me, I suppose. So a podcast format is perfect.
Yeah, I feel an audio format just helps further bring about, a more informal and a more genuine side of a person. A person is less conscious, and that comes in. But
Right.
interesting, you spoke about the imposter syndrome. We had Sarah Keller from GMS Switzerland, who also featured a couple of episodes ago, and she also mentioned how the imposter syndrome is such, something which has been playing an impact on her, and how she's worked on overcoming that. And in your case especially, you are interacting with literally the who's who, all the CXOs and the CEOs from all the large carriers and other global players. How has that experience been? Has that played some significant impact in your life, or anything specific?
Yeah, it's been incredible. I mean, I'm so lucky to have such a wonderful array, of board members and community members within the GLF who are genuinely guided by our purpose, by our mission. And when I started last year, I think it coincided with running a chair election and Elisabetta Romano kind of taking on the role of chair of the GLF. And our first order of business was really to kind of structure a narrative around all of the incredible work that all of the members and the board and my predecessor UC had put in place. So we kind of went back to basics and really figured out what we wanted to do, how we wanted to get there, what is our guiding principle. And throughout that process, I cannot thank actually the board enough for their engagement, because I think when the mission is right and people can see that we're actually moving the dial on programs that matter, that are going to support the industry as a whole, people dedicate time and attention, and their team's time and attention, right? Because it's not just the board members who are delivering against our objectives. The reality is we keep the world connected, and our purpose as an industry is critical to humans everywhere, right? So how do we ensure that we have a healthy industry that is really achieving that for the world?
Amazing. So literally, Annabelle is at the helm of all affairs out here.
Yeah, maybe.
Wonderful. So, Annabelle, now we'll switch sides. We won't be talking about GLF, we'll be talking only
Mhm.
about Annabelle. So, tell us something shocking, which maybe nobody in the industry, or at least most of us in the industry, don't know about Annabelle.
Oh, shocking. Okay. Well, I don't know if it's shocking, but I would say that the thing that I get commented on most as a surprise is actually, I suppose, my age, right? In that I've, yeah, I'm 36 now and have achieved already quite a lot, or at least, that's the appearance for people. And I think that's something that for me, I've always been very mature for my age, and that really dates back to, I suppose, my childhood. My dad was diagnosed with a very rare disease when I was 5. So, and he passed away when I was 19. So throughout all of that period, we were watching his decline, and really trying to care for him. At the same time, my grandparents were living with us, so caring for them towards the end of their life. My granny had 17 strokes by the time that she passed away, so was almost completely paralyzed. My grandfather had Alzheimer's, and obviously that had a huge impact on the mental health of my mum, who was kind of really holding everything together. So for me, as I suppose the elder child, I took on a lot of that burden and grew up maybe a little bit too quickly, but at the same time, it's always been really important to me to ensure that those around me are, happy and healthy and looked after before I look to myself. So I don't know if that's shocking at all, but hopefully it provides a little bit more context into why I am the way I am, I suppose.
I'm actually in a bit of a predicament. So, you're right that in terms of all that you've achieved, it's tough to imagine that you're only in your mid 30s. But at the same time, when one looks at you, you look like you're in your mid 20s. So, actually,
Oh gosh, that's thank you, Anurag, but the grey hairs would disagree with you.
well, that's okay. I think hobnobbing with all the CEOs can bring in a few gray hairs for even a teenager at times. So, that's all right. So, Annabelle, beyond work, I mean, yes, we know that you have a very hectic work schedule, but outside of that, how do you recharge yourself? What are your passions, interests? What keeps Annabelle going?
So for me, there's a few different things, right? I am a literature fanatic. I read voraciously, so books is definitely one thing, and then it is being outside. Um, my father was an ornithologist, and my grandfather was director of parks for East Africa. So being outside, being around nature is really important to me. And then it's food, travel. I do a huge amount of cooking and love cooking. It's one of the things that actually me and my husband probably enjoy doing most together, cooking and walking the dog. He's not a reader, sadly, and traveling, because it's kind of about people, right? And all of these different things that feed into understanding cultures is really important.
Absolutely, I agree. And moving on, Annabelle, there are two games we play with our guests out here now. So the first one is that I'm going to throw a couple of words towards you. And
Mhm.
for each of them, would love to know the first thought that comes to your mind. And as I always tell my guests, that be original, be human. So the first thing that comes to your mind, we'd love to know that further. Are you ready for that?
I am, for sure.
Awesome. So the first one is telecom.
Keeping the world connected. I mean, I couldn't not use the GLF hashtag, right?
There you are. I'm gonna get the GLF sponsoring this episode now.
Well, no, but it's true, and actually, it's as a hashtag, it's something that we've rolled out across all of the kind of capacity ITW and BroadGroup channels, because I think within the pandemic as an industry, we finally gained a little bit of recognition actually from the world around the place and the role that we play actually in ensuring and continuing societies, economies, businesses, right? I mean, without what we do, the impact of the pandemic would have been exponentially worse. So, it's always try and advocate for a purpose-driven approach to everything that we do, because if there isn't a purpose behind what we deliver, then where's the passion, right?
Absolutely. All right. The next one is motivation.
Well, passion, I think I said that already. I think again, for me, I'm naturally quite an optimistic person, and that really comes from being passionate about what you do, and that kind of natural enthusiasm kind of is really what motivates me. It has to come from a passionate, authentic place.
All right. The next one is family.
I mean, is there? I'm not. I mean, all important. I mean, that's a bit of a trite response, but I think family for me is everything, right? We're a very small family. We're extremely close. Yes, we've had our problems, but at the same time, I mean, who hasn't? And without them, you know, without my parents putting my education before some of their needs, I wouldn't be in the position that I am now. So I suppose gratitude might be a better a better answer for family.
That's a good one. The opposite sides of the same coin, career.
Career. So again, I think it's loving what you do. And I had this, I actually last Friday I had a conversation with some of the more junior members of the team. And the advice that I always want to give, right, is make sure you love what you do. Don't play politics. Keep your head down. Always deliver the best job that you can do. And if people ask for help, if it's within your power, do it, right? Because all of these things will come back and just help you moving forwards.
Wonderful. Those are some lovely words of wisdom from our Annabelle. And the final one, where we are today, podcast.
Dog walks for me. That's when I listen to my podcast, and I walk. I'm lucky. I live kind of on the edge of a village, going out to open countryside. So I walk probably, I don't know, between 5 and 8 miles every day with the dog, depending on the season. Um, and I listen to podcasts all the way through, and they're such an incredible source of insight, information, learning, pleasure, all of these things. I mean, I really love them. And I have to say, I've listened, I think now to almost all of your episodes, Anurag, and I think what you're doing with Humans of Telecom is really cool and very exciting.
Oh, wow. I didn't know I had yet another ardent follower. Thank you so much
I
for that.
fangirl over here.
Awesome. Then, in that case, you know what the next game is. So, I'm going to ask you to tell us three statements. Two of them
Mhm.
have to be truths, and one of them has to be a lie. And I'll guess which one is a lie if I can. I've started becoming better at the game in the last couple of episodes. I hope to keep the winning streak on. So, would you have three statements for us today?
I do. Okay, right. So first off, I would like to say that the statute of limitations applies to all of these statements. So,
All right.
statement one: I speak 5 languages. Statement
Okay.
two: I once persuaded a mugger to give me my things back. And statement three: I once entered Brazil illegally.
Oh my God, this is as interesting as it can be. You know, I am very sure that you've convinced a mugger, and actually, that's a problem. All three of them look quite possible in your case. I would like to believe you know 5 languages, given your origins and your love for literature. While I really hope that you have entered Brazil illegally and there is a story to tell, but I'll go with that one. I'll guess that's the lie. Am I right?
No, you're not right. I mean, I don't speak 5 languages. I know 5 languages, but two of them are ancient Greek and Latin, so it don't really count as speaking, right? Um, but with no, so I persuaded a mugger to give my things back. That's true. That was I don't know a while ago when I was living in Chile, and I was waiting. I was by myself outside, waiting outside the gates for a music festival because I go to a lot of music festivals, and I was by myself. Didn't have, waiting for my friends to arrive in the middle of nowhere. And a guy came up, punched me in the face, and ran off with all of my stuff. And I just had that moment of going, wait, hang on a sec. If I don't have any means of contacting anybody or any money or anything, right? I'm really up the creek here without a paddle. So I chased after him, managed to persuade him to give me everything back. I gave him, I think, I don't know, some money, 10, 20 pounds or something for his trouble so he could get home. But that was fine. And then I carried on into the festival. And then with Brazil, in a similar period of time, myself and a friend decided that we were going to hitchhike from Santiago, where we were living in Chile, up to the Pantanal in Brazil through Argentina and Paraguay. And we got up, so we hitchhiked, all great, had a great time, got to Concepcion in kind of Paraguay. And we decided that we really wanted, because because a lot of it's quite, and this is going back a little while, there's a lot of dense jungle around there, so river travel was kind of the main way to go up. So we're like, brilliant, let's get on a boat. So we got on a boat, spent, I don't know, 3-4 days on this boat, kind of going up to Brazil. Arrived, got to the border town, only to find that there was no passport control. And our bank cards didn't work either. So we then had to spend a lot of time convincing somebody very nicely to drive us for 8 hours back to a different border crossing point within Brazil, at which point we kind of crossed the bridge, recrossed, and pretended that we'd entered for the first time. So yeah, I was an illegal immigrant in Brazil for a couple of days before we managed to enter illegally.
Amazing. And you know what's most fascinating in all that you told? I'd love to have witnessed the conversation between you and the mugger and how you managed to. I mean, that would literally be negotiation skills 101.
Well, I think to be honest, because I think I was 20, 21 at the time. I think being confronted with kind of a crying 20-year-old just really confronted him with, wait, actually, if I do this, I'm going to have a negative, my actions might have a bigger impact than what I had envisioned, right? And I think that's genuinely the persuasion, all that I put in place.
Awesome. Cool. And Annabelle, moving on, since you said that literature is of interest to you, so do you have a favorite book or a movie or a series maybe? And if there is some character that you could play within that, would you have something to share with our listeners?
So books, movies, food, whatever. It's my husband gets very annoyed that I have no favorites, right? So I really enjoy everything. So all genres, most authors, all music, from drum and bass to opera. I'm open to everything. So a favorite is very difficult to pick. However, from a character that I've always wanted to play, I was obsessed growing up with the Kenneth Branagh version of Much Ado About Nothing, and Emma Thompson's role playing Beatrice. And for me, Beatrice in Much Ado About Nothing was kind of almost like I wanted to be her, right? She's feisty, she's witty, she's self-assured, she's caring. She would do anything to protect her friends and her family. And I suppose the rest of it, the romantic side of things wasn't what drove her. And I found that really, I don't know. I just think from a, given that as a character, she's 600 years old. She's actually a bit of a feminist icon, and I've really appreciated that. So yeah, Beatrice from Much Ado About Nothing is kind of who I would play. Plus, you get to say lines like, I'd rather hear my dog bark at a crow than a man swear he loves me, right?
Interesting. That sounds like a very fascinating character, and maybe we should all check it out further.
Well, Shakespeare, right?
Absolutely. All right. So, with that, we come to our final section, Annabelle, and two quick questions here. Firstly, since people have heard such amazing stuff from you today, if anybody wants to meet or reach out to Annabelle, what's the best way, and which are maybe some of the events you might be attending in the coming months?
Perfect. Yeah. So reach out to me. I mean, LinkedIn is always a good route to get in touch with me. And in terms of where I'm going next, we are partnering with Batik. So the GLF is partnering with Batik in the first week of September. So you'll see me and a lot of the GLF board members there. And then that is swiftly followed by the inaugural edition of ITW Africa, which is going to be incredible. So I'm super excited for both of those shows before we then get into, Capacity Europe and the October craziness that comes with the event season. But yeah, Batik and ITW Africa are coming up next.
Awesome. So, for our listeners, if anybody wants to get a first hand experience of how Annabelle convinces a mugger to return her stuff, just, just hit her behind on her head and run away with a mobile, and you'll get to see that firsthand.
I mean, please don't, but
Or else, please do. Awesome. And with that, Annabelle, our final question, our signature question:
yeah.
what does being human mean to you? What sort of a human being would you want the world to remember you as?
I think compassionate and compassion. It's one of those things that and I don't want this to sound tired at all, but it's really important to me to understand, recognize, my privilege, to own that, to pay it forward. I run outside of work, kind of a local environmental charity. I've spent a lot of time working in the refugee camps in Calais. I'm quite politically active. My dad was a a Labour MP in the 70s. So I think it's that really, it's being ambitious for yourself, but understanding how you can help other people at the same time is really important.
Fair enough. I agree. And I think being compassionate is one of the most fundamental traits which, it really helps a human being to become a better human.
Right.
So, on that note, Annabelle, it has been a fantastic conversation, and there is so much which we learned today about Annabelle beyond just the lady representing ITW and the broad group. There is so much more that we got to hear about Annabelle today and such fascinating stories. And I do hope we cross paths soon and see each other somewhere.
Me too. Thank you so much for your time, Anurag. I've been in very safe hands. No mugging involved.
Perfect, perfect. So, thank you so much, Annabelle. And to all our wonderful listeners here, as always, thanks a lot for tuning into the show. We hope this episode gave you a good glimpse of the human side of Annabel Helm, somebody who comes from such diverse origins and has achieved so much at such a young age. Someone who's a literary buff, who has, through her words, managed to even convince a mugger to return her stuff. Someone who has been a part time illegal immigrant and has at the same time conquered her fears and the imposter syndrome. That for us is Annabel Helm. So, if you enjoyed today's show, do stay tuned in because, as always, we shall soon be releasing yet another episode and another compelling story from the telecom space. And do follow the podcast on your preferred streaming channel. On behalf of Humans of Telecom, this is your host Anurag Aggarwal signing off for now. Take care.